Good morning. It's Friday. We're live at Ruth Stitchery, and today we're going to talk about thread. Fun stuff, right? I'm probably going to tell you way more than you ever wanted to know about thread, but I am not ashamed to say I have a little addiction, a little obsession to thread. The colors, I just can't resist them. I own a lot of thread, but we get asked a lot, what kind of thread should I be using? Do I use cotton or can I use polyester? What weight of thread? So we get asked what is the best thread to use in quilting quite often. And so, I say this all the time. I'm not going to tell you that there is a right or a wrong. I'm just going to tell you what I have learned over the years as a quilter, why I use the thread that I use, why we sell the thread that we sell and not other brands. It all comes down to quality, how long it's going to last. When I first started quilting, I had no idea. I was on a budget. I just bought whatever thread I could afford. And yes, it would break sometimes, but that's how it was. As I got further into quilting, I did realize that there is a difference in quality of thread, which is why you pay more for some threads than others. And so not to bore you to death with thread, but it all comes down to how thread is made. It is wound, usually 2-ply or more. The more plies it is, the stronger the thread. And so when you look at a spool of thread, there's some information that you should always be looking for. You should see what weight of thread it is, meaning how thick or thin it is. And I know it's confusing, but the higher the number, the thinner the thread. So if you're looking at a 12 weight thread, that is a very thick thread. If you're looking at a 100 weight thread, that is a very thin thread that almost looks like fishing line. It's so thin. And then you'll use the different weights for different reasons. And so you probably hear a lot of people say that if you are a quilter, then you should use cotton thread. Is anyone going to come to your house and say, hey, you're using polyester, you shouldn't be using that? Of course not. But the reason that most quilters use cotton thread is because they are quilting with cotton fabric. And it's always nice to use the same material throughout, especially for quilting, because cotton fabric has a little shrinkage to it, and so cotton thread also has a little shrinkage to it. But again, polyester is a stronger thread, so that is why a lot of people use polyester thread when they are doing machine embroidery. Because of the speed that that needle is going, you would definitely want a stronger thread for that. Okay, so let me just kind of get into the threads that we sell and what they're used for. And of course, I'm not going to go through every single thread, so if we don't talk about it, I'll just mention that we have it. So I'm going to start here with this Ultima thread. It's from Wonderfill. This is a 40 weight quilting thread. It's a cotton wrapped poly, meaning it is cotton on the outside, but the core is a polyester. The reason that they did that is because these are typically used in the long arm machines, and so they don't break as easily because that polyester core is very strong. However, it has the cotton on the outside that blends right into your cotton fabric. So it is certainly not the only quilting thread out there, but it is one that we have found is a good quality. It's pretty affordable. It's like $16, yeah, $17 for a large cone. So it's really nice for your long arm. On the bottom here, you'll see that we have some King Tut thread. That is from Superior Threads. And doing a little research and just my own use of it, I will tell you that that is probably the best quality quilting thread out on the market today. It is 3-ply, meaning it is stronger than most threads, but it is 100% cotton. So it's what they call long staple Egyptian cotton, and we carry it in the cones. Of course, not every color, but some standard colors in the cones. We also have it in smaller spools if you're going to do some quilting on your domestic machine as well. It is known as the best quality to quilt through all 3 layers of your quilt. Then we come to Aurifil. I always get a lot of people who ask me, what's my favorite thread? What threads do I use? How would I rank threads? So in terms of piecing, when you are just piecing your quilt through, my favorite is Aurifil. I do feel like it is one of the top brands out there for 50 weight cotton thread to piece with. We carry the 40 weight as well as the 50 weight. So when you come into our store, the 40 weight has a green spool. The 50 weight has an orange spool. And so this is the brand I piece with most often. It's a 50 weight cotton thread. It's high quality. And I was looking up, how can you tell? Like if you just find thread, a lot of us, get thread from our moms, our grandparents, or whatever that is, and you wonder, is this thread still good? And so I was reading up, like, how do you tell if you don't know what brand it is? And so one of the things that you can do is pull thread off the spool and hold it up to the light. If you see a ton of fibers coming off that strand of thread, you will know that that thread is going to be weak, it's going to break, and it might be on its last leg. So, or it's just, it might be not a thread that's ready to be thrown away, but just know that it isn't the top quality thread. All thread is going to have a little bit of those fibers, but if there are a ton of them, they're going to break pretty easily, and they're also going to leave a lot of lint behind in your sewing machine. So that's kind of what you want to look for. So Aurifil also makes an 80 weight. So if you remember, I said the higher the numbers for the weight, the thinner the thread. So we do carry the Aurifil 80 weight. I use the 80 weight for my needle turn applique. I also use it when I'm doing English paper piecing. I just like that it's thin. The stitches get hidden pretty easily because of the weight is thinner. We also carry 100 weight thread. That is from Invisifil, or it's also a Wonderfil company. It is also a brand that Wonderfil makes. It's called Invisifil. It is 100 weight, 2-ply, they call it cottonized polyester. So again, it looks like a cotton, but it is a polyester core. So it's very, very strong. My first introduction to Invisifil was when I started doing machine embroidery, and someone suggested putting Invisifil in the bobbin because since it is thin, but it's strong, your bobbin will last a lot longer and you won't have to change that bobbin as often. So I don't know about you, but that's the worst when you're doing machine embroidery and all of a sudden your bobbin runs out and you got to take the hoop off, you got to change your bobbin. So using a thinner but stronger thread, your bobbin will last a little bit longer. I have also used Invisifil for quilting. I was just talking about a 40 weight thicker thread for quilting. However, I sometimes will use Invisifil again in my bobbin when I'm doing free motion quilting on my domestic machine, because the bobbin's going to last longer and it's strong, and I find that I don't have to change my tension even if I'm using a 50 weight or 40 weight on top and 100 weight on the bottom. So that is Invisifil. And then this is the King Tut thread that I was talking about, that is probably the top quality quilting thread because it is 3-ply and it is 100% cotton from Superior. On the other side of this display, we also carry Mettler. Metler is a company or a quality of thread that I would probably put right underneath Aurifil. So if someone asked me what my favorite quilting threads are, I'd probably say Aurifil first and Metler second. Metler is also a very high quality thread. It's going to leave a little bit more lint behind in your machine than Aurifil, but it's still a strong cotton thread. We carry it in 50 weight and 60 weight. And so that is just on the opposite side of this display, as well as some sulky threads that are 100% cotton, and they are a 30 weight and a 12 weight. So in a moment, I'm going to walk over and talk a little bit about hand quilting thread. But the 30 weight, a lot of people like to use a 30 weight to quilt because it is just a little bit thicker. And if you really want your stitches to show, that's a great thread to use. The 12 weight is certainly getting thicker. I know you can use 12 weight in your machine. Depends on the needle you put on. You'll need a much larger needle, and you'll have to be probably changing some of your tension in there if you're going to put it in your machine. Typically people use a 12 weight though for hand work. So I use 12 weight for my wool applique because it sinks right into the wool, but it's thicker and much stronger as I'm doing it by hand. So I am going to sort of walk over into the needlework area, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the different threads that we have for some handwork. And I'm sure you can see when you look, this is why I'm obsessed with thread. It's just a rainbow of color. I'm inspired by a lot of things, but color is definitely right there at the top of my list. I see a lot of colors and I want it all. I do have a lot of these threads, but these threads are not for machine work. These are for hand work. So if you do hand embroidery, if you do wool applique, we have started to really grow our threads from Sue Spargo. And we start here in the front with what's called Razzle and Dazzle. These are rayon threads, so they're shiny. Weight-wise, they're probably like an 8 weight, but they're shiny. And the Razzle is just a shiny rayon. Dazzle has a little metallic in them. So that is what is here on the front. Some will use this just as some embellishment stitches, just to give their work just a little bit of a sparkle to it. These are wool threads. I use these to tack down wool on a project. The reason I love using the wool is because very similar to using cotton thread to piece your cotton fabric, when you are using wool, using a wool thread, it just sinks right in to the wool and it looks really, really nice. And you want some of those stitches to disappear. And so that's what that does, using a wool thread. And then we get into some heavier weight cotton threads from Sue Spargo that are used for embellishment stitches. This is our 5 and 3 weight, which are much thicker. And into our 8 weights, we have solids and we have variegated. So we have tons of options for you for embroidery. I'm not going to walk all the way over there, but if you've been shopping with us for a while, you know that we also carry DMC pearl cotton. We have it in 3 weight, 5 weight, 8 weight, and 12 weight, as well as the DMC floss. We have Weeks Dye Works floss. We have General Arts floss, and we have some Cosmo Seasons embroidery floss. So we have a lot of hand threads that you can use for your projects. The last one I want to mention, we're not going to walk over there, but maybe you guys can kind of turn and see. We also have a display of Floriani threads. that are up in the front of the store, those are specifically used mostly for machine embroidery. So that is a polyester thread that comes on a cone. They're very inexpensive. They're like $6 or something like that for a cone. We have the entire array of colors from Floriani, and so that is our brand that we recommend for machine embroidery. Of course, there's lots of threads out there that you can use. I think I have talked you out on and on and on about thread, probably way more than you needed to know, but we just get the question quite often, what thread should I use? Why do you use a cotton thread? So hopefully I've answered some of those questions, and certainly if you have more questions, just let us know. Thanks for joining us this morning.